Our biggest pain point was
when you scale quickly without, it's very manual, very late nights, very time consuming, like learning another profession. Sometimes you're trying to clean up a mess that somebody made.
it's hard. It's hard to get it right from the beginning because it's so new. If you can get it right from the beginning, then you avoid literally years of trying. It's just so painful going back and trying to sort it all out.
One of the real things that really moved us forward was our teams. We purchased about 20 of them in a year with joint venture partners and sometimes multiple ones with people. And that started because we had the community, we had the reputation, and people believed in us.
That's one of the biggest things that gets in people's way is you wouldn't say it out loud, but they actually don't.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Show. Today we're joined by Nicole and Colin, who started with a single family basement suite, and then with partners they purchased over 30 properties in 1 year. They now have over 150 doors under management, not just by hustling harder, but by building smarter. So whether you have 3 doors or 30 doors, stay with us. You'll walk away with an idea of which systems to build and how to build them. So Nicole, Colin, I want to welcome you guys to the show.
Thank you so much.
So thanks for having us.
So can you guys tell us a little bit about, the moment that sparked your interest in real estate and your journey and progression to this point?
I feel like there's just 2 words for sparking our interest, or at least my interest, and it was Scott McGilvery. So it was probably even before that, watching income properties, having a dream, thinking that you can do this too. That was essentially how, the bug got in our ears. And then it was just like joining, back in the day when they did live free sessions, joining a live or like an in-person free session and seeing exactly how things worked and then wanting to invest in ourselves and thinking that we could do it too, basically.
I love that. And I think that's a common starting point for most people.
Scott McGilvery?
Well, that and just that entry into it, right? Like you join some free seminar and, you catch the bug. Some of what they're saying makes sense and you sort of want to progress and take it from there. Now, there's sort of a fork in the road there where some people just never end up taking action. They maybe just learn a little bit more about it and they want to do these things and they get all hyped up and the buzz sort of fades away. Maybe it's too much work, maybe it's too much out of their comfort zone, or it seems unattainable. But that wasn't the case for you guys. So you sort of joined that free session. It made sense and you're like, hey, this is something that we want to pursue. How did things progress from there?
I'll say that during the session, it was a weekend session. We went home and we Googled everything because we didn't know if it was true or not, to be honest. So we just wanted to make sure, can you hold a mortgage with registered funds? How does private lending work? Let's check on CRA, what they say. So we just kind of double checked it to make sure we weren't, being sold something that wasn't true. And everything checked out. So we definitely did our due diligence at the very beginning. And then we looked at ourselves and when you're spending that kind of money to get into some of these mastermind circles and things, up until that point, it was probably our largest single purchase to get into this. And we just decided like, we're going to go all in, we're going to invest in ourselves and we're going to see where it takes us. And, I find you have people who pay for education and you have people who choose not to, and there's a big difference there. And a big mindset that people have to overcome. And once you do it, then you realize, you're in it. And then, you have to take action. Like you said, knowledge is power and take that action and move forward. So that's we just believed in ourselves. And we started small when we started. We just kept building ourselves up, but we didn't assume we knew everything.
Yeah. I don't think we thought it was as big of a deal in the moment than now when I think about it looking back. Because making that one leap and making that one decision to invest in ourselves and do something that none of our friends were doing, we actually told no one that we paid this much money to join like an education group for how to do real estate. When we started talking to people about all the stuff that we were doing, everyone thought we were in a cult or in some MLM scheme. And yeah, it obviously it grew from there. Now people reach out to us and ask our opinions and stuff. But when we started, I don't think we realized how important that first step was.
Yeah.
In believing in ourselves.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I mean, that's how we started.
I think there's that advantage. There's an advantage to working in silence for a while, because, and it depends on your personality type, but you end up getting less potential resistance or doubt seeds that can be implanted by those people closest to you, because they don't necessarily understand what it's all about, and then you start to second guess it. Also, sometimes working in that quiet silence and then coming out can have its advantages. I mean, of course, putting yourself out there, at least in the right places, it helps attract other people, it helps grow your network, build some credibility. But in those initial stages, there is, in my opinion, there is an advantage to that. Just keeping your head down, not necessarily sharing any of this with other people, and then, finding some truth to what you've learned, which gives you more conviction to take the next step and keep it going. And, I also want to say something to what you mentioned there. You always pay for education. So you could pay that high ticket for your education, and you could speed up, how long it takes you to get to whatever your goals are. Of course, they're ever evolving, but you could speed up that journey, you could shorten it, or you could pay for your education with the mistakes. And there is something to be said about paying a high ticket price, because you're more committed to it. You value it more. If it was all completely free, you probably wouldn't put as much commitment and value to it and dedicate as much time to seeing it through. Once you've spent quite a bit, and that pain of paying for it comes with that reminder that, hey, I need to take this seriously, or else all of this was for nothing and that money was just wasted. So there's definitely something to that. But we're at this point now where you guys have gotten educated, you've taken that initial step, and you started small. Tell us a little bit more about how things progress from there.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So as Nicole said, we first started, we were living in Vancouver at the time. And the first property we bought after education, because we had owned properties before, we say that's when we became real estate investors, when we started educating ourselves. We bought a property in Ontario. So we bought across the country, managed it remotely. So those are major hurdles that people couldn't overcome in the groups and things that we were doing. A lot of people couldn't, they want to invest on their street in their backyard because they know it, they're comfortable, they want to drive by it. And for us, we said, let's listen to our mentors, see what they say. And if we can get over the hurdle of investing across the country, I don't want to be driving by, like, I can't drive by all our properties every day. Like, you just don't have that time. And if you want to scale. So we kind of overcame that. We bought a single family home, legally duplexed it. Then our family grew. We moved across the country, bought another home that we were living in, and we legally duplexed it. So that's kind of how we got started. And then we were done mortgage wise. We had 2 homes, and that's all we could qualify for. And that's when we said, what's our next? We did the private lending, registered funds, things like that to grow passively. We had 2 homes, and we said, okay, what's the next step? We need to learn, we need to find somebody to help us get there. So we've seeked out another mentorship on joint ventures. So we went into there, figured out how it works. We got set up, and then we started finding a market, finding partners, both financial and working partners, because we have working, and we have financial and working partners. So we just found a market that worked. The price point was great. The opportunity was, just fantastic for what we were trying to do. It was a low entry point for people because we were buying in the East Coast, much cheaper than BC or Ontario. And we just started packaging our deals, looking at them, doing our due diligence. But the key really was, I'll get back to when we first started. Once we learned something, we're big sharers. We're big proponents of sharing our knowledge. And we would just give that away for free to other people in the groups, to people that were just joining, people getting started. We always
We started talking to people about it.
Gave back.
Yeah.
And through those relationships that we built, when we were ready to take that step into joint ventures, we had the community, we had the people around us, we had the reputation, and we always gave back. And people believed in us, and then people started investing. So that's when we started doing mostly residential joint ventures, so fourplexes and under. We purchased about 20 of them in a year, with joint venture partners, and sometimes multiple ones with people. And that started. And again, your reputation, because we were in a small market, we were in New Brunswick, and we had a reputation of being able to close. So
Yeah.
once you get that reputation, agents know, everybody starts knowing, and we might not be the best monetary offer on a deal, but they would know that we could close. So then more things started coming to us, and then apartment buildings started coming to us, and that's where we hit our next hurdle of, we don't understand apartment buildings. They're different than residential. We seeked out another mentor. And when I say mentors, we're not talking people that have 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. We want people that have gone through market cycles. So
Oh yeah.
20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
And we felt that was really important. So we went into multifamily, and got the education, did the courses, got the mentorship. And then we started acquiring larger apartment buildings, 12 units, 13 units, 15 units, 20 units. And it just kind of progressed from there.
I love that breakdown. Now, there's a few key things that I noticed there is you guys, it seems like you stayed single-minded at that specific stage, just going all in until you hit sort of the point where it's taking it to the next level and then seeking guidance, and then all in, and then taking it to the next level, seeking guidance and going all in. So you're sort of single-minded, you're not distracted. So you went all in on the residential side to the point where you didn't make excuses, not being able to necessarily invest in your backyard, or having potentially better opportunity investing elsewhere, and taking that and running with it until you get to the sticking point where it's like, okay, can't hold any more mortgages ourselves. How do we go about scaling beyond here? Because you could have called that and said, okay, we have, we have 2 suite of properties. Cool. We'll save that for retirement. We've done what we can. No, there wasn't an excuse. Like, okay, so how do we learn about joint ventures? And then you go all in there. I love that. And then you get to the point where, like, okay, multifamily. And you're right. I'm an investor focused realtor here in Edmonton myself, and agents, multifamily brokers, everyone takes the people seriously that they know. Like, these are closers. These aren't time wasters. They'll take you seriously. Sellers take you a lot more seriously if they have more conviction in you as a buyer being able to close. Oftentimes, they'll go for that versus just the lowest potential offer that's in there, just to get their property all tied up, for it to fall through again and go back onto the market. So there's a lot of pros to that. Now, there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm sure that progression really benefited you, because you could take the foundation that you started out with and you can build on top of that. You could take the systems that you started out with and you can adjust and evolve them and build on top of that, and the skill sets, right? So it's a very natural path, but I like the fact that, in my opinion, the better way to go about it is to have narrow focus. So you could be like, I'm going to dabble a little bit. Yeah, I'll do maybe a little bit of Airbnb arbitrage, or I'll do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and just 1 or 2 of each thing, versus like, let's learn a skill from someone who has extensive experience and knowledge on this, and let's take it and do it to the best of our ability. So I don't want to hop on that too much, but it's I think it's a smart play. Now,
it's not to say that we didn't have a little bit of shiny object syndrome, because
everyone does.
Yeah,
like
but keeping yourself in check is key.
Yeah, there was a lot of different things that we wanted to try, and like, we definitely have some Airbnb in our portfolio, but there are sometimes, a lot of the times, it was used as a tool to just increase cash flow. Like, if in a fourplex.
Yes.
So it's usually done for a strategic purpose, as opposed to like going all in and learning, going and getting an Airbnb portfolio. Definitely not arbitrage. Although,
Yes.
again, it sounded good for a few months.
Well, that's it. Like, and here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with any of those different strategies, but I find that if you're able to take the knowledge and your skill set and really push that in like a focused direction, you get a lot further than if you sort of spread and you have a little bit of knowledge and skills on all these different things. Don't get me wrong, like having a bunch of tools in your toolbox is good, of course, but there's just something to narrow-minded focus. Now, of course, as an investor, you need to be resourceful. You need to be nimble and be able to adjust if the moment arises versus just calling it quits or making up an excuse. So there's definitely nothing wrong with that. But I think for all of us, it's trying to keep ourselves in check when it comes to shiny coin syndrome, or else you don't get too far if you constantly being distracted by the next opportunity and then learning about it and then coming across potential hurdles and then learning about another opportunity and then, okay, let's switch our focus there. You know what I mean? You don't end up taking a lot of action. But I wanna dig a little bit deeper. What part of your early operations as you guys were building, because you guys clearly had an end goal of scaling in mind, right? It's clear to see that it wasn't sort of just on a whim that that we were going to do this. You had some intention behind what you did. So what part of your early operations felt the most disorganized when you were getting started, or when you got to those sticking points? And how did you sort of start tightening things up so that you could progress and take it to the next level?
What do you think, babe? Do you want to say it at the same time?
You go first. Yeah, we've
Yeah, I mean, initially, our biggest pain point was accounting.
accounting and
Oh,
bookkeeping
Yeah,
was very,
and bookkeeping. Yeah,
very difficult.
it was
painful for
a
everyone.
disaster. Yeah,
When you scale quickly without proper systems in place, it's very manual, very late nights, very time consuming. You're like learning another profession. Sometimes you're trying to clean up a mess that somebody made, like your bookkeeper didn't know how to do it correctly, because just because they're a bookkeeper does not mean they're your bookkeeper. And we've gone through 4 bookkeepers. And you lean on these people as they're the professional,
Yeah.
but you start to feel like it's not right. There's something not sitting right, and that's where your community and the people you're surrounded with, you start, have a soundboard and talking to them, and seeing how they're doing it, seeing how we're doing it, and then you can kind of say like, this isn't working. And that's something else we needed to learn early on, is like, you know hire fast, fire fast type of thing. Like, know when you don't keep digging in that hole, like find a way around it. And it's okay to outgrow people as well. Those are some
100%.
key things that we started. But generally speaking, and in our circles, most people, it's the first thing you need to do is get an educated bookkeeper, preferably an investor, somebody who's investor focused, who has properties themselves, and work through that. And then you develop your team through that. But very that was very hard at the beginning to go through it, because we had so many different properties and different managements, companies for certain ones, and they all have their own way of doing it. So one property manager would give us a report that's a 1 page, and another one would give me a 30 page. The 30 page was great if you can understand it,
Yeah.
right? So that, and you're talking about accounts receivable, payable, trial balances, all these things that were kind of foreign to us at the beginning, because we managed our own properties at the beginning. We had a couple properties that we did ourselves, and that was spreadsheets, doing it. It was fine. But when you get into these more complex systems, and as we grew, our structures changed. Hey, are we doing corporations? Are we holding in JVs with residential, like personal? Are we doing GPLP? How are we setting these up? So as we've learned, we've evolved those systems. And then again, it's another set of skills you have to learn for the infrastructure, the back end setup. And I mean, there's a lot of lessons that we've learned. As you said, we got education to streamline that a bit and get confident, but definitely life still hit us in the face a few times, and had to learn quite a few things. But I would say the first thing was definitely bookkeeping and accounting was the major thing that we had to tackle.
yeah. Like if you can get that right from the beginning, it it is. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to get it right from the beginning because it's so new.
Yeah.
But if you can get it right from the beginning, then you avoid like literally years of trying to of when tax season hits, it's just so painful going back and trying to sort it all out. So if you can get it right from the beginning, then you avoid that pain, right? Because I remember, I mean, that was awful, but I remember you with those like literal 30 sheet, you know, like property management reports, and
Yeah.
Colin would have them on the floor of his office trying to like figure out, he's like, I
Makes
don't
sense. Yeah.
understand what this and why did they do this? And, like, I can't even remember all the terms, but when you like share the cost of something over the across.
Or amortizing or doing things. It was
Yes.
just, it was a lot, and you're learning somebody else's system. So when we were ready, we built our own system, and that's what we use now, and it works great. So filing system is another way to, like, how do you digitally file them? We have a system set up that we have a naming convention. We do little tricks, like we put, say it's an invoice, we put the price in the naming convention. So when I search, you can find it. So our bookkeeping went from having a long line of, here you guys have to give me all this information, find it, I can't find it. Now you can search and get it all yourself. So no suspense items, right? We don't really get those anymore because everything is at where it should be, and it's just all logical folder filing structure system. So that works great. It's all digital, so that worked really great for us. Communication was another thing. We were getting people would message on Facebook Messenger. People would message us on comments. People would text me, call us, email us on our personal email us on our business email. That was something that we really had to look at. So just last year, I said everybody's basically getting on WhatsApp, and we made groups for every single thing. And one of the real things that really moved us forward was we interconnected our teams. So our bookkeeper has direct access to our accountant. They all have direct access to our lawyer. They have direct access to our executive assistant, which is another thing we did. And they have different chats, and everybody can communicate. So I'm not man in the middle, Nicole, it's not the woman in the middle, filtering these, thank you, and then things get lost in translation. We just have our professionals talk to each other. That really helped, because your accountant, your lawyer, your bookkeeper, you're doing your estate planning, you're trying to figure out wealth generation. Those are the people you need, and your financial advisor as well. You need to get them all on the same page so that they're talking and they understand what your goals are. So again, another thing that we just learned. So they're not all big extravagant things. It's
not super sexy.
It's not super
It's
sexy.
not that exciting.
But it's how it's been us to grow and stay consistent, right?
Yeah.
And stay who you are. So,
well, that's the call it unfortunate thing, is most of your growing comes from things that aren't super sexy, unfortunately. But for people out there listening, I'm sure majority of them can understand that pain, So there's a lot there that you gave that we can sort of unpack for maybe for people who are a little bit earlier on in the journey or at that point. So it's firstly, yes, you want to try and hire right, and it's one of those where there's an element of luck if you get to hire right the first time, but sometimes you just have to go through a few, right? But you can sort of increase your odds of hiring someone that's likely going to be a better fit for you. And some of it comes from streamlining communication. Yeah, that's a key thing, because else, your filing could be really good, your naming convention could be really good, but then if you need to go back and reference correspondence, that becomes tough, because where was that? Where do I find that? So bringing everyone into like one clear stream of communication, yeah, that's a game changer as well. And then having them speak to each other. What's that?
Everything written down. That's something we learned the hard way, because everybody's memory they remember what they want to remember.
100%.
And having a conversation on Facebook Messenger, and then an email, and then it's a text. So we basically putting everybody there and having, and you reiterate, you send them back to, hey, we just talked about this, and it may seem redundant, but I'm like, now it's written down, so we have the same understanding, and that was really important. And one of the things that we learned is you have to be ready for that next step. You have to be really like open-minded to accept what you need to do to move to that next step. So we read lots of books on, playbooks, SOPs, optimizing your time, who, not how. But it wasn't until we were at a point in one of our masterminds and we were introduced to Dan Martell. So buy back your
Buy
time.
back your time. Oh,
So, and I jumped on that, and that just became my Bible.
Same here.
And I took that. He's actually, we live in Moncton, New Brunswick. He's from here. And we actually met him in person here as well. But it's so simple. And when you think about it, like we used to do everything, and it, hey, I could teach Nicole how to do this. It's going to take me an hour, or I could do it in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And that mentality is what kept us not respecting our time and setting boundaries. And once we figured out we have to implement the system, I need to sit down and spend that hour or two to write it out, document it. It wasn't pretty at the start. I do it at my other job, so I do enjoy documentation, but it's just spending the time to actually do it. And now it's like I need to set a measurable goal. And what we ended up doing was we implemented these systems. Like tax season was very hard. You imagine all the corporations or structures, and having joint venture partners and people, you have to give them the documentation for their personal taxes and things. So there's a lot of people depending on it. And we just said, you know what? When we got through everything, we're never going to be in that position again where we're stressed out trying to do it. You're up all night. You're running on half the fuel. Your mind's not working right when you're up at 2 or 3 in the morning doing these things. So, and we reap the benefits of that, because this year we had all of our stuff into our accountant in January for all of our corporations, everything. And we overwhelmed them because we were like, hey, we need all these taxes. And they said, we reviewed everything and you owe tax on these 3 corps and the rest you don't. We're just going to do those 3. And those are the ones that they did for tax season. Like we're just ahead of the game on that. And that's, in the moment, it was just like a lot of work and energy put together. But I'm like, this year we just like, we're already done. Like, run the report. Like, it was very simple. So setting goals, measurable goals, especially around your time, is really important. And I am terrible at setting boundaries. I mean, and that comes to mindset, that comes to like where you come from in life and growing up, and people pleaser or not, which I am, and I'm working on. Because as I said, like I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a son, all these things, and you have to manage that with a job, with real estate and everything, and you need to be there for people. And it's something that me personally, I still struggle with and work to better myself every day. And I know there's a better way to do it. And with the help of a supportive partner I have, we're going to get there, but it just definitely takes time.
Yeah. I always say, if you want a really good working partner, like someone who's going to grow your portfolio for you, get someone who's a people pleaser, who's got, who just wants to make you feel like you're being taken care of. And, like, are you okay? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm here not sleeping for, days and days, but as long as they're okay.
Exactly. That book, I treated that book like a textbook myself. Like I went over it and over it, and I took takeaway after takeaway after takeaway. I want to say, and I only found the book last year actually, and man, it was probably the most impactful book I'd read last year on my business, on my team. Like I've implemented so much from there, and I've mentioned it, I don't even know how many times in my podcast already, but for anyone listening who hasn't gone through that book, it's a game changer. Like you absolutely have to. It's a no-brainer. But I completely agree with you, and I found myself to be a people pleaser to some degree as well. So you have to set those boundaries. But there's one thing Dan Martell says as well, and I'm probably butchering it, but if something goes wrong, it's either like a people or person problem, or it's a systems problem. And sometimes we think it's a person's problem, but we just haven't put the right systems in place for them. So it's a nice way to sort of audit that when you're having issues with any of your team members, really. Is this Is this a people problem or a systems problem? And if it's a systems problem, then maybe you need to go over that. So oftentimes we run into glitches or mistakes or whatever on my team. I'm like, well, that's a good thing. Let's break this down. Let's see, is this a systems problem? Because if it is, fantastic. We get to evolve our system so that it doesn't happen again. So no, I'm a big fan of that. It can seem painful at first, and it can seem very daunting trying to put all of that in place. But once you start reaping the rewards of it, it becomes a little addictive, because it's like, okay, so what can I streamline next? What can I make better next? And it's not just handing things off. Yes, that is a big part of it, so that you can better serve your community, your team, your clients, your customers, just everyone around you, right? It gives you more capacity, because we only have so much capacity, and we're able to do things at a much higher level. And one of the biggest
Sorry, I
false
was just
beliefs
gonna say,
I
like, you
had.
made a really good point there about
Yeah,
like
go ahead.
your community and your people.
Yeah.
Because we've gone through it, when we talk about like Dan Marteller's systems, I hear myself 3 or 4 years ago having people tell me this, and me just saying, no, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And now that we've been able to open ourselves up and get to that point, now in our community, when we see people entering and coming into this and working, I'm like, I'm having the same conversation that they had with me. I'm telling them, this is what you need to do in this. I know it's not going to make sense. You're not going to see it, but trust me, it is.
Yes.
And what they take from that, if they do or not, but we're able to really identify people who are in that growth stage and really say, like, this is the thing that you need to implement. It's really important. And I know right now to you, it probably doesn't seem important, but think 5 years ahead, and it's really it's going to help you so much, and you don't even realize it. Because some people say, I have one property, I only have this private land and that, and I'm like, implement the system no matter what. Just implement it, and it's so easy to scale and grow once you get it in there. But yeah, and helping people, right? So just hopefully people hear what we're saying and can ask for help, implement these things. People always often ask us, what do we do? And we just give little tidbits of information, and come back to us and let us know how it went. So
100%, 100%. And one of the biggest false beliefs that I had was, I can do this better. So if I can do this better, I should be doing it. And Dan Martell says, like, 80% is
100%
is
awesome.
100%. Exactly. So that was something that I needed to change. And I did. And there's a lot of people out there that might be listening and say, I want to scale. I just don't have the time. I want to get into real estate. I just don't have the time. The only way that you really get the time is being able to put these systems and people and team members in place, so that you can get the time to take it to the next level, really. Of course, for some people, it might just be like, suck it up and put a little bit more time in. You know what I mean? Some sacrifices do need to be made. But again, there's only 24 hours in a day that we all have. So how are other people getting more out of their time? Well, they're doing it strategically. And this is how it's done. Now, you guys have highlighted quite a lot of good points and tips for people out there. Reflecting throughout your journey now, are there any other points where you're like, you know what? This was another sticking point. These are some systems we put in place, and that's how we sort of overcame that.
Well, it's interesting. You were just mentioning, how do some people have the time and some people not have the time? And like, how do you choose where to put your energy and where to, go all in? That is, I think, what people often don't talk about, especially maybe on like the podcast or on their social media, because social media is just the highlight reel.
Yes.
There's a reality to the growth that people either do or do not have, right? And I mean, like, the actual scaling of a business. Everybody, when they get to a certain point, and I'm talking like the big guys, like the Dan Martells, or like, like Brandon Turner.
Yeah.
Both of them have said they don't work very much, right? they actually don't put in a lot of hours, and they're only working on these big picture things because they've created systems in order to, buy back their time and so they can live their best life. And I believe them. But there's this gap between
Hmm.
when you don't have anything but you want it, and when you are, you know, at the Brandon Turner level. And I know that the like Buy Back Your Time is a book that will walk you through the steps of doing that. But
Yeah.
there's just this reality that I sometimes think that people don't talk about when you are exhausted
Yeah.
and you are you literally are burning the candles at both ends, right? For a, for a metaphor or a cliche, but like you literally are really working very hard. Like Colin still has a full-time job. And there was a time when we moved across the country with our two kids and we didn't have daycare and we were in a new place where we didn't know anyone and we didn't have like help. And I mean, it was him working constantly and us and me trying to like keep the family together. It's it was a really hard time, and that still, like, we're still working through that balance of trying of how much you want to put in order to make it grow, and what kind of a life you want to have. So that part, I think it's going to be different for everyone. um I don't believe in that hustle culture of like grind till you're, like you can sleep when you're dead. And I think that most people probably pull away from that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also, you don't just jump straight to working 3 hours a day, right? There's like this
100%.
period of time when you're constantly juggling between how much time I'm going to put into this and how much time I'm going to just, live my life while while I'm young-ish. Um,
100%. Yeah.
and I think it helps that both of us are like fully in this. Like we are both 100% committed to our company, to our company's growth, to our company's vision. And so, yes, I will I will complain when he takes a phone call 3 minutes before we have something scheduled, but I understand it. Like I really do understand. And so, yeah. I mean, maybe we could just work on communication a little bit, but that's why we have therapy.
Yeah. But
No,
having a supportive partner, that was a major, like you're
that's what I was gonna
asking
say.
about
Yeah.
certain things. Like
Yeah.
we know lots of investors who's it's a woman or a man and they're partners or they're alone and they have no support, but they want to do it. And they, thank God we are who we are and we're so compatible and we're here to really support, emotionally support, mentally support, respect. If I can't set up a boundary, still my wife will set it up for me.
Set it up.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that in the time you might be upsetting, angry, and trying to do something, but I ultimately like, we always repair, we always talk to each other, we talk through it. And being in real estate, as you know, it's all you talk about. You can talk about real estate all day, right? And you need to have more more life involved. And Nicole make sure that the kids they're going to their friends' birthday parties, they're getting the gifts, they're having fun, like they're involved in sports and everything that they're doing. She's giving them everything that I want to give them, but time wise, I just don't necessarily have it all the time. So that partnership, like that's another thing, but the partnership at your home really helped us be aware, help protect each other, when we saw we were getting damaged or getting hurt. Because there's a lot of mental capacity goes into anything you have your heart in, let's be honest. But with real estate, the last 5 years, like that is you're on a roller coaster. It was quite insane. So having that partnership at home, I think, is really key to have that first. And then obviously, we talked about, we partnered with people. That's how we scaled. Again, setting up those relationships, setting those expectations. the phone calls that we have with investors and people now is 180 degrees different than when we first started. We understand our worth. We understand what we're bringing them, and we're there to help solve a problem mutually so we can both grow together. We don't always partner with anybody. We're more reserved now, and we just make sure we're aligned. We've done like personality tests with our partners and things, like going those next levels to see what happens. Because when the bottom falls out, like we've seen, partnerships can collapse. People can change their attitude. When people are under pressure is a lot different than when things are going good. And you just want to make sure that you're in, because you're getting married essentially for a 5-year term, 10-year term, whatever this partnership is going to be. Making sure that is, everybody's supported in that and you're in the same goal. And life happens, things change. We're very understanding. Like you have a partner who says, this happened to my life, I can't have this asset anymore. I know we had a 5-year term, and we look at each other and say, well, what do we have written down? What's our exit strategies? Do we buy you out? Do you want to buy us out? Do you want to just sell it? And we're just very, I want to say like accommodating for our partners, still respecting our time and energy that we've put into it, but yeah,
accommodating. Definitely, you're definitely very accommodating.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely accommodating.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Just going back to your partner, I don't necessarily think that it's a requirement for both partners to be in real estate, because I've seen people with just one partner, but I think a big requirement is having a supportive partner. Because if you don't, in my opinion, it's probably better to then just be single and doing it yourself versus having someone who's constantly pulling you away from where you're trying to go. You at the very least need that support in your home environment. Someone who can help fill you up when you're feeling low, someone who can help juggle everything else that you're not able to juggle because you put in extra time into growth. And I mean, let's be real, growth is never fun. Growth always comes with growing pains associated to it and extra time that needs to go into it. So I have seen power couples like yourself that are both in it, and there's definitely advantages to that because you guys are able to play to your individual strengths and focus on that. So then you don't necessarily have to be doing stuff that don't work with your personality, your skill set, your strengths. But it's not an excuse, because I've seen other people that don't have that and they figure out a way maybe to outsource it with, building a team around that. But yes, having that partnership and having that support makes the world of a difference. And I agree with you. Like, I think hustle culture is overrated. But that being said, there are people out there that have big ambitious goals, but they're not willing to make the sacrifice, or they spending their energy. And I love the fact that you mentioned energy on other things. Like, it's easy to say I don't have time, but I'm spending a ton of time watching Netflix every single night. There comes a bit of realism to that. But that being said, like, there are people that work really hard and work multiple jobs and they just haven't gotten anywhere, right? So there's that level of work ethic, but the big thing is the strategy and the systems that you put in place, right? Because all of these hyper successful people are hard workers, but they're not necessarily hyper successful just because they're hard workers, right? They did a whole bunch of things correctly. They were able to build companies, build systems, and build these machines that are able to give them way more leverage on any time that they expend on the growth side. So no, I fully agree with you guys. And then on your last point there, your business partners, your investors, those are partnerships as well. And I see this too often when people are just getting into it, is they are willing to take money wherever they can get it, right? It's like, whoever I can partner up with, it's just, I want to get the deal done. And I do see that as being a mistake. Like, as the working partner, you should still be qualifying people, and you shouldn't just be settling, because you could come to regret that, right? It's a qualifying factor on both sides, to make sure that you're a good fit. So those are your partners as well. And if you're both doing things right, you guys could end up being partners for years and years and years to come. So you want to make sure that you are bringing in with partners where there's some form of compatibility in terms of your relationship, and then also just maybe your core beliefs even. But yes, I just wanted to go through some of the stuff you guys mentioned there, because there were a lot of key things that you mentioned that I don't want the audience to miss, because those are very, very, very important
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But that being said, though, you guys have done a few things right behind the scenes, and I'm just trying to peel away and see what I can peel out for our audience out there, because you don't get to where you are just purely from working hard. I mean, I think that is a given, and making those sacrifices, that's a given. And having a supportive partner is definitely a requirement. But there are many people out there who work hard and have supportive partners, but they're still not able to scale. You know, they're still not able to accomplish what you guys have accomplished. So I'm trying to find some more of those things, because, like, you know, naming convention, filing, you know, the communication, setting standards. Instead of having people send you their own different formats of different things, it's sort of putting specific requirements in place, setting boundaries. Those are all key things you guys have done, right? That some people may overlook and not even think about. They may just be grinding away, but they're not seeing the results. Is there anything else you guys can think of aside from that? Maybe it's, you know, aside from the accounting, maybe it's on the management side, maybe it's on the tenant placement turnover side. What are some other systems, or, you know, some other playbooks you guys have managed to put in place there?
Well, okay.
You
I
can
would
back it up
say,
if you want to.
yeah, no.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I was gonna go. I do think that there are definitely other systems that we could talk about, and um, there's one of the things that you have to first get over, and you have to first confront, and you know, like it's like an internal thing, and you sort of have a conversation with yourself, is your mindset. I think
100%.
that that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people, like, that gets in people's way, is that they don't, you wouldn't say it out loud, but they actually don't believe in themselves, and they don't believe that they can do it when it gets really down to it, and it hinders them, and it stops them. It stops them from asking for help. It stops them if they run into an issue, because they think that if they run into an issue, then it's the universe telling them not to do it. Or if they run into a problem, then, you know, like, they're not cut out for this, and this is not, you know, like, or if they fail, you know, we have this culture where we think we're never supposed to fail. But, you know, when you start talking to all of the most successful people in the world, that's what they tell you time and time again, is that you have to fail, right? Like, they talk about how it's some of the best people in business used to be athletes, because they have this understanding that you build off of your failures, right? You have to fail. Like, most of the time, when you are, like, the Wayne Gretzky quote, right? And the Michael Jordan quotes. But, like, most of the time when you are building yourself as an athlete, you are failing. And that's how you figure out how to do it better. And I think that we usually don't apply that to us as individuals and our own personal growth. So that's one thing that we've definitely done, is alongside business development, personal development has been right there. It happened naturally. Like, it just had to happen. You know, like Dan Martell often says, he's like, Buy Back Your Time is a personal development book masquerading as a business development book. Like,
Yeah.
because it really does, it brings that out of you. And once you have this realization that you are an entrepreneur, then you realize there's a whole other side of that life that has nothing to do with business, and it has all to do with grit, resilience, you know, like personal belief, all these things. Like, you need those things in order to face the issues that you're going to face. And I think that some people, I mean, I think that we in the real estate investing community are typically lucky, because mindset is something we talk about,
Yeah.
right? Like,
100%.
when we were starting in our first, like, not an education, but more of a mentorship group, there was a mindset coach, like,
Yep.
and it was amazing. Like it was the first time we'd ever had something like that, but it was, um, I think that it was invaluable. Like it was invaluable that we had that. And so I think that is often the first switch that has to happen in someone,
Is yeah,
because then you can go and you can look at the issues in your business, or like what's it called? The
the
bottleneck? Is
bottlenecks.
that it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'm the worst with metaphors and stuff like that. I
yeah.
always mix them up. Anyways, uh,
You identify the bottlenecks.
yes.
Yeah.
So like when you identify the bottlenecks, then then you're not scared of them.
Yeah.
I think people get scared of the issues that they see coming up. And sometimes when people get scared, they put their head in the sand, and then that's when things come crumbling down around them, right? Like
I fully
we've
agree.
seen we've seen some like devastating castles crumble
Yeah,
around us
yeah,
in the recent few years.
And
yeah.
it's not that they're bad people or had ill intent. It's just things happen. So
But like sometimes, like as somebody on the outside looking in, sometimes it feels like you put your head in the sand and then you stopped working. And I just feel like that will never, I mean, I can't say that. Like, right? You can't say stuff like that and then, have it on YouTube. But I really think that that's not who we are. Like time and time again, when we've faced an issue, like our head is not in the sand. Our head is out looking for solutions. And like walking down a path until there's a barrier, and then walking down another path, and then walking down another path until you find the right path that's going to work.
so yeah, I
So
can
that's not a system.
but I can give you like a few tangible things. Like you want to hear some tangible things as well. Like what Nicole said, we we worked until we worked and couldn't work, and then we had to have those it was invaluable. Like through our growth, we did. How do you invest? How do you do private lending? How do you do joint ventures? How do you do multifamily? And then we get into an entrepreneurship mastermind, and that's where
Yeah.
it's like, how do you build a business? That was our next goal. Is like, how do you build a business? So, a few things that I would say that people like takeaways if they want to do. First of all, it's like you get in the right rooms with the right people. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You're in the wrong room. You got to keep growing. Utilizing Canadian real estate is very small. It's a very small community. You want to build relationships, be the person who has the relationships and leverage those relationships. So one of our superpowers is like we're extremely vulnerable. So
Yeah.
when we go into conversations, we go into a mastermind, like we're just open heart. We're like, this is what we're dealing with. And people would be like, they probably don't want to share that because they're having a hard time. They're trying to figure it out. I'm like, let's just give it out to the community, give it out to the universe, and let's see what comes back. And we're able to resolve issues faster, and lean on our mentorship. So vulnerability is something that you really need to embrace. And people, it helps solidify connections, people with you, because they're going through the same thing, even though you have no idea because they're not talking about it. Vulnerability is key. We keep winning awards in our mastermind for being the most vulnerable people, right? And most contribution, like you contribute the most, because if you don't have problems, you're not growing. So
100%.
you got to be bringing that in. So that's something that we really do, and it helps people connect to us. And those people could be potential partners down the road, investors down the road. One thing, like I said about relationships, stuff started coming to us because of who we were. So we weren't looking for properties. We weren't looking for opportunities. It just all came, like a lot of it started coming to us. And it's great when great deals come to you and you don't scour MLS
Oh
and
yeah.
talk, like things were just coming in, and that was fantastic. So something like leverage your relationships. If you have a portfolio, leverage. Again, real estate is about a lot of leverage. We have our portfolio and we move it around for insurance. We move it and we get
hmm
great, fantastic deals, right? And people can't understand. Well, we have 20 properties or this, that, and the other with these people. You can negotiate. Another thing is ask. You get your annual renewal, let's say for insurance. I look at it and say, it's a 20% increase. That's not, or this is whatever it is. And you'd be surprised at how often it's like, okay. And they'll just roll it back to what it was, if you have that relationship, a meaningful relationship with them, not just I'm going to call you once a year and do a transaction. Okay.
Yeah.
Build that relationship. Because when you're in the muck and something's happening, one thing that we pride ourselves on is when I pick up the phone and call, they answer. Our lawyer answers, our accountant answers, our bookkeeper, our realtor, everybody, our brokers, everybody answers the phone, right? And that's very meaningful. And when they need some stuff from us, we answer the phone and we help. So that's something that's fantastic.
Even if it's just before a podcast episode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What other things do we do? Have a communication plan.
Yeah.
When you start, it's like, monthly cash flow. We're going to be distributions. We're going to be doing monthly updates. You're going to kill yourself. Okay. We went from monthly to quarterly to semi-annually. So every 6 months, I set that precedent in our conversations about you'll get another update in 6 months. This is what it is.
I love that.
And that just, you get to see the growth and the changes that are happening over a longer period. Of course, if something comes up that's an emergency or things like those are the conversations you have, and you always have touch points in between those, right? That saved me. And then this year I'm using like ChatGPT to help me write those. I'm like, here's all my previous emails. Here's where I get all the data from. Let me put it in. So leveraging AI is something that that's its own podcast. So we'll just saying, use it for things like this. ChatGPT helps me write an email that when I have emotion, it can sometimes take me a long time to write. It helps me get in there. My REA, she's fantastic. She's able to write like us, and she's able to do the 80% done, and we review. So again, respecting time. So communication plan is key, I think, in setting those expectations for everybody. Being organized. When you have partners that are refinancing properties and you have a residential property with them, like, oh, I need the rent roll, I need this. And we're able to spin that out in like an hour or two. Here you go. Here's what you need. They really respect and understand that and appreciate it. So being organized and be able to, like, we have data rooms. So our partners are able to go in and see everything if they want to. It's all there. So having transparency, clarity, building that trust is really vital. So those are a few things that we did. We talked about burying head in the sand. Again, be vulnerable. Do those, get into those communities and talk about your problems, because you're not the only one going through it. Like 100%. Email management. If you want to do inbox zero, you want to do Dan Martell's thing, and when you read these books and hear about these things, you don't have to implement it exactly. Just find what works. It was just too rigid for what I needed, and we just found a way to work around that and have a clear inbox and have things labeled and have follow up. So labeling, having a communication system was really key. CRM. Do you have a CRM system? There's plenty out there that are pre-built, or you can build your own. I think just tracking key data of touch points for people, setting reminders, like we use monday.com for a lot of that stuff. So sending reminders, being proactive, that goes a long way for people. So when we have a private lend coming due, we have a notification 60 days out. That's when we're engaging them. And we've been lenders where it's supposed to be paid out tomorrow, and then they message you and saying, hey, it's going to be delayed 6 months, that doesn't go over well. So just everybody's human, things happen, the market changes, but just be proactive and have those conversations and set up and look 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. I think all I have to say, communication is really key, especially during hard times.
Mic drop there, guys. I love that. I love that. Nicole, I really, really appreciate the fact that you mentioned the whole precursor to actually creating systems, right? I just want to start there because it's a big one, and you are the bottleneck of your business. You really are the bottleneck. So having that self-development, focused side really helps you grow in all aspects of your life. But I totally agree with you on that. So I know that wasn't the question. You didn't answer the question I asked, but you went a little bit deeper. And I think people need to understand that as well, because that's how they'll be able to start developing their own systems. That's how they'll have the inherent drive and energy to get through the tough times and to put the time in that's needed. Because if you don't have that belief, if you don't have that level of conviction that you can do what you want to do, that you can achieve it, and that failing is the path to get in there. In fact, as a parent, it's one of the things that I'm really, really deliberate about, is to just ingrain in my kids is that you should celebrate those failures, and that you should learn from them 100%. Because if you're just repeating it, then it's not a mistake. It's not a failure. Then it's just a choice. But learn from them. What can we learn from them? If something goes wrong, great. Okay, so what happened? What can we take away from that? And you shouldn't be ashamed of those failures. And I think that's the part that drives most people out of action or into inaction, and just rather Netflix and chill all the time just because it's easier. There's no risks associated with that. But when you have that certain level of belief that, hey, I can do this, and if I fail, that's okay. No one's going to care. People are more worried about what they have going on in their own lives anyway. And I'd rather go ahead and fail and fail and fail, knowing that I've put in all that I can put in, and be okay with that. So I love the fact that you mentioned that. And then Colin, oh my gosh, man. I was trying to keep up with how many bombs you were dropping there. Like, there's a lot there, and thank you for that. I do appreciate that, and I know listeners out there appreciate that, and I'm sure they gotta just go, that when you're listening to something, that 10-second or 30-second button back, and just tap that a few times so you could just re-listen to all of those things again, because there's a lot that you mentioned there, all valuable stuff, all of that valuable stuff. I'm gonna try and work my way through them, but being proactive, that there can save you a bunch of headaches. It really can. And I think it fosters good relationships. It does. Yeah. So that's a big one. AI, man, if anyone's out there listening that's not leveraging AI, you are so far behind. You really are. That's a big one. I'm glad you highlighted that, because we can't go through an episode where we're discussing systems and procedures and all of these things and not mention AI at this point in time. Like, it's a key component to everything. So, and that's an episode on itself, as you mentioned, but there are a few key things that you mentioned that you do. Then I do all of that myself as well, because you can get AI to help save you the time of drafting up something from scratch. You can train ChatGPT to learn your mannerisms and ways and ways of speaking, and then put in your intent for the message and have it draft something out for you that you can take, polish up, and send over. You can have your EA help with that as well. And power combo is if you get your EA to also leverage the power of ChatGPT, they get way more out of it as well, which gives you way more leverage out of that as well. So no, there's a lot that you unpack there. Interviewing you guys, I can absolutely see why you guys make such a good team. Because Colin, I can clearly see that, the systems is something, you're really passionate about. Yeah. And Nicole, I can absolutely see your strengths on your end in terms of holistically keeping everything else in check, like mentally, running, those boundaries that need to be set into place, and making sure all of those things are running smoothly. Call it maybe on a higher level, while Colin is like really dialed into the details of I don't know, maybe I'm misinterpreting it here, guys, but that's what it sounds like. Dived into the details of really fine tuning other stuff, and together it makes for a very, very well oiled machine. You guys dropped a lot of bombs here. I would encourage everyone who went through this just to give it another listen, because there is a lot in there, and you don't need to take it all as a takeaway. Like, just take a few key things at a time to try and implement, because if you take too much, you just get overwhelmed and you don't change anything. But take a few key things based on where you are in your journey, because I feel like no matter where you are in your journey, there's something in there for you to take away, and there's something in there for you to improve. Whether you're right at the beginning where you need to be focusing on on the mindset side of things, or you feel like you've got the mindset side down and you want that next step, well, they've highlighted how they've progressed and how they've looked for mentors, how they've built a community. Another thing you mentioned is being vulnerable. That's a key thing. It really, really is. I mean, if it wasn't, then all these superhero movies would just have these perfect people, but they always have some level of vulnerability, and people resonate with that. People appreciate that. So opening yourself up, as much as it seems like a weakness, it's not. It's absolutely a strength, and it makes people like you more. It makes people want to help you more. So when you get to those sticking points, you have the mindset of, I can do this. So it helps you be a lot more resourceful in finding a solution versus just, like you mentioned, Nicole, burying your head in the sand. And then being vulnerable just opens up your options a whole lot more, because it's like, hey guys, this is what I'm struggling with. This is a sticking point. Has anyone else experienced this? What have you guys experimented with to come up with a solution to get past this? And you'd be surprised. And I think for anyone who spent even just a small amount of time in the real estate investing communities, they found that it is so supportive. You get so much
100%.
support from the community, which could be a misconception from someone looking to get in. It could seem daunting, like, who's gonna want to give me advice? Who's going to want to help me? Like, I know nothing. I have nothing to bring. But you'd be surprised, even going there as someone who knows nothing about real estate or has nothing to their name, the community is super supportive. So I want to thank you guys. Now, quickly, if we have the time for it, let's see how fast we can do this. I want to do one of my segments. Like, I have these two segments. The one's a little bit quicker, so let's go for that one. What we'll do is we'll alternate between the two of you. Okay, so it's just quick rapid fire round. Just answer the first thing that comes to mind. Just something short and sweet, and let's just have fun with it. Okay.
Sure.
All right. Okay, so Nicole, let's start with you. If you could only track 3 metrics to run your whole business, what would they be and why?
Like investor touch points, like how many, I'm way more this side of things, so mine's gonna be way different than Colin's, but investor touch points, and then, oh my God, for me it would be like how well our marketing is doing, like social media
metrics.
social media metrics, and like looking at how we're increasing our engagement, and how many times investors repeat with like investing with us.
I would also say for Nicole, like, how often are we asked to come on podcasts and shows and other people's stages? That's something that Nicole's been working on it, and it's been fantastic. Sorry, I didn't even answer for you.
That's totally
No, but that's fantastic. Those are really important metrics. Honestly, I probably would not have guessed them, but those are real key important metrics. So, thanks for that. Colin, what's a boring task that actually moves the needle in your business?
I love all the boring things. I mean, most people say documentation. I love it, but documentation is something that people find really boring and tedious, but it pays off dividends.
It moves the needle. 100%. Okay, Nicole, let's see this question. If you had to remove yourself from the business for 30 days, what's the number one process that must sort of be bulletproof before you go?
The social media calendar, and having it all set up, and all of the workflows for if people were to sort of download a lead magnet, and to making sure they're still getting like that welcome email, all that automated. I mean, I almost can do that now, so maybe I should go away for a month. Yeah.
Vacation.
Mm-hmm.
That is key. That's front end of the funnel. So yeah. Okay. Colin, one operational shortcut that always backfires. Anything come to mind?
Operational shortcut that always backfires. Oh, I've cut a few of those out. An operational shortcut that always backfires. I would say communicating before an issue is like resolved. So when you get an issue, you immediately communicate that to your partners. Causes panic. You don't have a solution, or you think you have a solution, but it's not finalized, and then it changes. Like, tell them when you're ready.
A big one. I'm a firm believer in that. I implement that across the board with everything, even with my clients. It's because no one wants to hear a problem, because now you've just passed your problem on to them and now it becomes their problem as well. Even if you're not asking them to do anything, you don't have a solution. So now your worries get passed on to them and now they're worried. That's the last thing you need to be doing. You need to be telling them after the fact, hey, so we had this problem. I solved it.
Yes.
That's what they want to hear. Cool.
It's a way to showcase your system too. It's like, hey, we had this dishwasher broke. We have the serial number. We have the make, the model, the size. Delivery is no problem. These are the 3 people we sourced it from. There's tax free right now. We took advantage of that when it was going on, and we ended up doing this. Like, hey, yeah, we had to spend $600, but wow, that was really efficient, quick, done. Tenants are happy. You could have spent $1,000. So it's a way to showcase your systems and processes as well.
100%. Oh, guys, this episode has been fantastic. It's been so much fun. And I know for our listeners out there, they probably want to keep this going. So where's the best place for people to follow you on your journey or maybe get in touch?
So our Instagram is at Good Homes Canada. And if you message me there, I will message you back. But we're also very active on Facebook. My name, Nicole Fiore, and PIN.
Colin.
And then Coast to Coast Homes Canada, we have a Facebook business page, and yeah, we're very active on there.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be sure to leave that in the show notes below. So go and follow Nicole and Colin to see what they're doing in the world of real estate. They have a ton of value to offer. So guys, I really want to thank you both for coming on. This has been a ton of fun.
Yeah, same for us.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for having us.
To our listeners out there, if you're looking for more valuable insights, be sure to subscribe. Share this with someone who can benefit. And as always, keep investing smartly. Thank you for tuning in to the Wealth Through Real Estate Show. If you want to know how infill development or missing middle housing can replace your income, then you don't want to miss my episode with Dan Hogenberg. This is your host, Alray Noble, signing off.